I wasn't going to record, but I thought about it, and it kind of is fitting because the last time I recorded the video titled Reading is Fundamental, I was sitting at a counter and I was talking about how imperative it is that we read the Word. And here I am, I don't know, some 7 years later, and we're going to have a similar conversation. So the other day I was talking to a friend of mine, and in our conversation, I was talking about this insatiable desire for us all to take in information, but this laziness that's created, and I'm a product of it too, that's been created because we have such instant access to truth and information. And with this instant access to truth and information, what we typically tend to do is take what another person is eating, what another person is taking in, and then make it true to us based upon what we heard, what we have previous knowledge on, our experiences, and we make ourselves the filter for information. And unfortunately, when we do that, depending on how limited our experiences are or how limited the information was that we got from other people, then in turn it limits us. So we've been having this conversation because we're in Jeremiah 23, and I've been out in these YouTube streets just making sure that information is out there. It's so important. And in the process of teaching through Jeremiah 23 and sharing together and the conversation about Patreon, I realized we still have the same fundamental issue. And the fundamental issue is that we're filtering everything through ourselves, through our experiences, and very, very rarely are we filtering it through the Word. So, in an effort to not have anybody miss this really important point, I'm going to keep it brief. Reading is still fundamental. And when I say something like that, people think I'm being funny or I'm being a jerk or whatever you might think. And it's not. It's really, really, really important. Why is reading so fundamental? Reading is fundamental on a psychological level. To be able to read, to be able to comprehend, and to be able to put it in practice is a gift. It means that you're doing something at a higher level that other living things can't do. That's amazing, right? It also requires for your brain to be in a place of regulation and for you to process. So a lot of people don't like to read, even now, and even if it's not biblical text, a lot of people don't like to read because before you can start reading, your brain and your body have to calm down. That's why reading is such a beautiful practice, because reading actually requires you to sit still. You really can't have a lot of stuff happening in the background unless you're one of those readers who can really go inward and kind of silence out the outside world, and that is a gift in itself. But that's why when you go to libraries, it's like quiet in the library. That's why when you see a person in a reading space, they make themselves comfortable and they get a cup of tea or they get a cup of whatever, and they're sitting there, and it's really, really cozy because it regulates the nervous system and it prepares it for input of information. This is really true, that it hopes is going to feed some part of a psychological need, whether it's a need for escape, because, we read fantasy, we read fiction, or if it's nonfiction, it's a need for information that can be applied. And it's the understanding of this information in these genres that then allow our brains to kind of say, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do, or this is what I'm going to do. And it makes this beautiful network function. Reading is fundamental also because it's necessary for us to slow down and process our experiences, and now I'm talking about scripture, through a lens that can aid in the brain sorting information into its proper places. Now, why does this matter? Because So we hear a lot of stuff, we hear a lot of teaching, we hear a lot of preaching, and unfortunately, even if you don't believe it's true for you, it's true for you, it's true for everybody, we have these things in our hearts. I'm going to call them idols. Idols, they're these empty voids, they're these places that we set up, that we guard, that we give information to and attention to, and really we don't like for people to have access, and we also don't like for y'all to have access to them either. And so what tends to happen when we come across information, the information first speaks to the void, and if there's nothing to mitigate, if there's nothing to be a buffer between your void and your action, then you will begin to act based upon your void. Perfect example of that. Not coming to hurt anybody's feelings, not saying it's not true, but a perfect example of that is identity preaching, within the Hebrew Israelite religion. There is a void. The void is there is a people who have been disenfranchised and they're mistreated all over the world, which are all truths, abundant truths. And then somebody preaches to the void, you feel the void, but you don't rectify the issue, which is how did you get in that condition in the first place? See what I mean? See what I mean? Where if you input information and there's not a buffer, if you don't use scripture to then say, okay, this is true, but what am I supposed to do? Then you cause a problem. Right? So what I mean by reading is fundamental is this. Everybody at this current state, we can all agree that nobody wants to be deceived. Nobody wants to be listening to something or following something that is going to lead them astray. But people who are doing astray are using the same text that everybody else has access to, which causes confusion. For the whole entirety of that thought, there's a video online. It's called Exposing Lying Prophets or something. It was the last thing I did. Listen to that. So, what is the remedy for that? The remedy for that is reading for yourselves. What happens when you don't read for yourself is this. You go, you listen to what somebody has to say, you get full. Your brain is full. It needs to process. It needs to think. It needs to see whether or not these things are true or not. You're doing what you believe is your due diligence. But you know what? Without reading, without a framework, without having Torah as your guide for whether or not that was true or not, whether or not a person's lying or not, whether or not that aligns with the text, then you just have a full belly and nothing to process it with. So what happens is you go, you think you process, but really what you did was just agree with the limited information that you had with something that somebody else gave you, and you actually didn't filter it through the scripture, because even if they used the text, you don't know the context of the text. It really, really messes it up. So the reason why you need to read is because a lot of people use parts of something that are connected to more of something, okay? For instance, I'll give you an example. Most of the time, if you know a song, right? Like you know a song, like that's your song, that's your song. I can say something as simple, and this is a pretty popular one, right? If I say, when I move, you move, then in that very, very secular, having to do with nothing song, the people on the other side would say, just like that. Why? Because you know what else is attached to the text. You know what else is attached to the song. You know what comes with it. You know what comes with it. So when you've read something, you then have a understanding of where the person is going and if it fits in. Now, if I said, when I move, you move, or if you said it, let's say you said, when I move, you move, and I said, right around the corner, you would know immediately that one, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what the song is, what the pop culture is, and it would immediately send off a red flag. The same exact thing happens when you read the text. When a person begins to teach and begins to preach, before you listen to them, you should come with your belly full. You should come with your mind full of Yah's word, because what should happen is two beautiful things that happen when you have the teacher that you're actually supposed to be listening to, person that Yah told you to listen to, and when you read the word. Because as you're reading and as you're studying and as you're before the Father, when Yah gives you teachers, because that's what he says he does, when you then get ready to sit with them, not even having talked to them, not even having communed and communicated what Yah was speaking to you, the person who is prepared to feed you, I mean, they're prepared and they're preparing, right? They will have the missing ingredients for your meal. But when you're going around and you're not reading, or you're doing a little bit here and you're gathering all this stuff from here, then you're really running into something like Chopped Kitchen, right? Where it's a basket of ingredients and they're all kind of random, and then you're just putting something together. That's where damnable doctrine comes from. That's why people are confused. That's why you're not getting it, because you're not sitting with the Father and getting the recipe and then knowing what it's supposed to look like. And then when you show up, you go, that's what it's supposed to look like prepared. That's what I'm supposed to be eating. That's what was on the menu. But because you're in this buffet style of just listening and then filtering it through the little bit you know, and not filtering it through your private time and your reading of the word, then you're getting all this different stuff, and then it like literally sways you every which way. When this person says this and this person says this, and you're like, well, when I read that, then you take it back and you go, okay, so then God's wrong. So then Yah's wrong, because when I read this now, I see this. That's the whole point of deception. If I tell you, and this is a crazy thing with reading too, I mean, a whole thing on like the psychology of reading, but if I tell you something and I tell you to focus on something and you go to read, it'll be very difficult for you not to see what I showed you. Versus if I tell you to read, you begin processing and thinking about it, and then there's a discussion or there's more information added. Now there's an engagement of the mind of not only revelation that you receive, but also, is this person telling me the truth? Is this person doing this work? So reading is fundamental. And I mean reading. I used to have this argument with a minister a while back. Not necessarily an argument, because what is an argument? But a fundamental disagreement. And my fundamental disagreement is this. There is this teaching, and there are some people who hold or subscribe to the particular belief that you need to study through. And you'll be studying this the rest of your life. Ain't no need in rushing through the Bible. You just need to be reading it. I strongly disagree with that, because I believe, not that I can't speak for other people. I strongly disagree, because that is a deception tactic. As long as you have not read, you cannot hold anybody accountable. And most people who handle the text, who operate with a lack of humility, are going to attempt to make you look stupid when you come to them with something that disagrees with what they have told you. And they'll take what you disagree with and run you around the ringer on how you don't know as much as them, because really you don't, because you haven't read. People who are involved in deception, maybe it's even self-deception, not just intentional deception attached to the word, but it still has the same outcome. People who are involved in that level of deception and have deceived themselves cannot help but to deceive you. So the reason why I say I disagree with this idea of take your time, you need to read through this whole Bible as quickly as possible, especially if you are out in these streets, in these YouTube streets, in these TikTok streets, in these Instagram streets, in these Facebook streets, in these religious streets, and listening to what other people have to say about it. You are right now, if you have not read it or have not read through it recently, you're in danger. You are in the most gravest danger, and you are vulnerable as heck right now out in these streets. Because people who teach the word do it with passion and authority and can be dead wrong, can be dead deceived. They can have a whole bunch of information, but they can be wrong. And so the way to protect yourself and to guard yourself is to get in that word and get to Yah's feet. Get before his throne. You need to be in prayer, asking what it is that he is saying. You need to do the difficult work. The reason why is this. I personally, and this is just like in the regular world, I don't like talking to people about things that they haven't, actually experienced. So, like, a person's like, ooh, I hate squash. And I'm like, wow, really? Yeah. Got those seeds, and it's, some of it's yellow, and, and it grows outside. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, have you tried it? No. And you're like, huh. So you don't like it, but you've never tried it. Okay, great. Or, how about this? I don't like that movie. I'm like, oh, okay. So you watched it? Yeah, I went to watch it, and I walked out like 10 minutes into it. Oh. Yeah, it was just boring. Like, just all this information in the beginning was just so boring, I couldn't get into it, so I left. So now I tell people that I don't like this movie. Well, if you had stayed for 15 minutes, you would have understood the background story, and you'd find out that that was actually a very well-written movie, and it was amazing, and that's why it's, typically that's how people operate. I know people who operate like that when it comes to scripture. They're like, the God of the Bible, he just kills people. And you're like, do you know what? Have you read it? Do you know what people are doing? No, I don't need to read it. Who would believe in a God like that? And you're like, okay, well, kind of missed that one by a long shot. That is what we're dealing with out in the world. We're dealing with people who have snippets. You have people who, well, I went to church and my pastor, that's what he used to preach, and now I'm in this camp and they preach the opposite, but since my pastor preached it and then they said that's wrong and I was deceived there, I'm gonna believe them. Y'all, I'm gonna say it one last time. Then you can go back and read the original, watch the original video if you want. But honestly, what I hope you do is shut off YouTube. Don't listen to me and don't listen to anybody else until you have a full belly and you're not starving and you're not hungry, and then you can actually listen. See, you guys go grocery shopping, you go biblical shopping for information on an empty stomach, and then you find yourself putting Kit Kats and Oreos and all this kind of stuff in the basket, and you're eating out of the containers looking like a weirdo in the store. Don't ask me how I know. That is where we are right now. You guys go from channel to channel to channel, from person to person to person, comparing this and that, and then you're just fundamentally confused. And unfortunately, that fundamental confusion will cause apathy. You will do nothing. And doing nothing will also send you to a place you don't want to be mentally, physically, and emotionally. And eventually, if you do nothing and you reject everything altogether, you will find yourself in the judgment having to give an account for your soul. And the reason why you'll say you were not doing the work or whatever is because when I was listening to people, I was confused. And I was like, but did you listen to me? But did you listen to my word? Because I was waiting to reveal, to open up so that you could challenge the teaching. Did you go to my word and then do like you were supposed to do and take my word as a guard against everything and everyone? Prophet has already said it. Let Yah be true and every man a liar. Nobody should have a dog in this fight. Like, really? You all, us all, we need to be reading, because when we read, it opens it up. I believe you need to read it as quickly as possible the first time through. You got to go all the way through. You got to get all the way through that thing. It's just like not having watched a movie. You cannot know what to do or how to have a conversation about something that you've never actually sat through, even one time through, all the way through, without anybody's input, is going to have profound effects on how you're able to guard against what's coming against you. The second thing is, before you put your meat in a seat, before you get behind a video in your home, you need to be praying. You need to be praying, and you need to be in your word so that you are being fed the diet that is for you. That's why Yah said he gives teachers and preachers. He gives the people for you. Also, though, for those of you who don't read, he puts a lying spirit on prophets. And he puts a lying spirit in teachers. And I'm talking about the people y'all listen to thinking you're in truth. I'm not talking about just out in the world, but all of them. He gives the flavor that you want so it'll make you sick, so that you'll come back to him. That's how much y'all loves you. He's like, all right, you gotta feel it, huh? All right, I told you already that that'll make you sick, but I'm gonna let you eat it. I'm gonna give you an appetite for it. And then I'm gonna give you an appetite for it, and then when you get sick, the only remedy will be to come back here. That's why when you came out of your religious constructs, you went right to the word. That's how it was set up. It's like when you have goats or sheep. So when you have goats, sheep, cattle, you have a salt block. And the salt block, has minerals and other things in it, but it also encourages them to drink water. Right now, the stumbling block in front of a lot of people is a salt block. And Yah is hoping that when you lick the salt block of false teaching, that you will get thirsty enough to go looking for living water. That's the whole point. But if you just keep licking the salt block and you never go to the water, you'll die, or worse, you'll drink water of gall. And then that will make you sick. And you'll get sicker and sicker and sicker, and hopefully you'll go for the remedy. That's what happened to you all when you were in religious constructs. You got sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker. And eventually something said, I gotta get out of here. I gotta find this. And then you got into that place, and you got in your word, and then you read a little bit, got a little bit of revelation, and you went running. And so many of you have not come back to make sure that you have filtered and refined. The word is beautiful because it's a standard. And you have to take everything that you get on the outside and then measure it up to that and then start scraping it off. Okay, that doesn't fit, that doesn't fit, that doesn't fit, that doesn't fit. Okay, I got this little bit. Okay, cool. All right, study the word, build yourself back up. You go back out into the world. You see how that works? It should be a flow. It doesn't mean that you won't get dirty. It doesn't mean you won't come across information that you need to go and refine and so forth. That's not the point. The point is reading is fundamental. You need to read first, and that means just read. That doesn't mean stop, study. I'm gonna do a word study now. I've been in this one chapter for 38 years. No, read it all the way through first. You should be reading constantly. And then through your reading, Yah will give you what to study. And then as you study, and as you begin to work that thing out, then Yah will send you teachers to bring greater revelation to the thing that he called you to study when you were reading, not the thing that was preached at as an idol in your heart or in your mind as a deficit. The holes, yeah, they can let the light in, but the holes need to be healed in the word. So I hope that today, if you haven't started, I don't care how you do it, get a Bible reading plan. I like the Torah portion version. There's ways of going about it. You can start with all the smallest books in the text and then read the other ones, but you need to get through it and you need to have a framework. And I say that as a person who spent a lot of time reading regularly, just full transparency, and then got lazy, where I'm reading what I'm studying and I'm reading through the Torah portion, but I wasn't reading enough, where it wasn't balanced input. And of course that comes from, work and school and all the things, no excuse. And even when I went back after having read, I spent a significant amount of my time doing nothing, but just reading through the text. Even I went back and was like, I did not remember this. Not like this. I mean, it vaguely, it's faint. And you're like, oh, okay, I think I know what happens next. We need to know the families and the people and who these are and the stories, because our salvation and our reproof and our growth are present in the book attached to our ancestors and our culture and the reason for our condition, but most importantly, the remedy and the redemption. To read. Hello. Read. All right, that's all I had. I'm gonna drink my coffee and do something. I'll read through these comments later. Hate that I couldn't get to them, but I can't do both. I don't know. I hate that I can even see it, because I'll be like, oh. I hope you all have an amazing day. It is the middle of the week, And most of us are heading into a little bit of vacation time if you're in the school system, so that's cool. For those of you that I'll see this weekend, I'll see you in Dallas. Be in Dallas, Texas. The information is in one of these videos over here. And yeah, I'm out.
I can't believe that you came into my life. You made me feel again. Now it's my turn. You say you've